Behind the scenes, Richard Harrison was living a nightmare. Now, his wife is suing their own son over $500,000 in missing cash. And the dark truth is coming out. Did Rick Harrison really cheat on his mother while she was in a coma? Did the old man know about the betrayal before he died? The truth about TV's favorite pawnshop family will leave you speechless. Richard Benjamin Harrison Jr. was born on March 4, 1941 in Danville, Virginia. He is best known as the Old Man from Pawn Stars. Richard's family moved to Lexington, North Carolina when he was 1 year old. They lived in a small house at 115 Peacock Avenue, which reflected their working-class life. His father was a welder and carpenter, struggling to provide for the family. Money was always tight, and Richard learned early on that hard work was the only way to get by. When he was 14, he got a job that most teens wouldn't even think of. He became a school bus driver, getting up early every morning to pick up kids and take them to school. Parked the bus at his house overnight and made about $5 or $6 a week. It wasn't much, but it helped his family a lot. School wasn't his top priority. He went to Lexington High School but dropped out in his junior year because his family was having money problems. Making a living was more important than finishing school. When he was 17, his life took a sudden turn when he met Joanne Rue at a barn dance. It was a moment that would change the rest of his life. At the same time, he made a mistake that could have destroyed his relationship with her. He stole a car and was caught in front of a judge. He had two options: go to jail or join the military. He chose to join the military, and in October 1958, he made a decision that would change his life. He planned to serve for 4 years, but things didn't go as planned. 2 years into his service, he married Joanne soon after the birth of their first child, Sherry, who had Down syndrome and needed expensive medical care to make sure she could get the care she needed. Re-enlisted, which made his time in the Navy longer. Over the next 20 years, he served on 4 different ships and worked his way up to become a petty officer first class. His assignments took him all over the Pacific, where he worked on destroyers like the USS Oral and the USS Twining, and later joined Tactical Air Control Squadron 21 to oversee air operations. His longest tour was from 1971 to 1975 on the USS Chuano, where he went on multiple deployments to Vietnam and received several awards, including the Good Conduct Medal and the Vietnam Cross. Despite his success, the Navy kept him away from home for long periods of time. He spent almost half of his career at sea, missing out on valuable time with his family. In 1979, with 3 teenage sons at home, he made a decision. He retired from the military. Richard Harrison and his wife Joanna moved to San Diego to start a successful life. They worked hard and even opened their own office for a while. Things looked good until the early 1980s, when the economy crashed. When the housing market crashed, mortgage interest rates shot up to 18%, ruining the Harrisons' investments in real estate. They thought they were investing in their future, but instead they lost almost $1 million. Losing everything could have broken them, but Harrison refused to give up later in life. He said that his time in the Navy taught him to be resilient and work hard. He knew they had to start over, even if that meant leaving San Diego in April 1981 with only a few things. With only $5,000 left, Harrison and his family packed up and moved to Las Vegas. It wasn't a hopeful move, it was a desperate gamble. Las Vegas wasn't yet the booming city it would become, but Harrison saw potential and thought they could start over. As soon as they got there, he and his son Rick opened a small used store on Las Vegas Boulevard South called the Gold and Silver Coin Shop. It was only 300 square feet, which was barely big enough to run a business. They did everything they could to get customers, but things didn't take off right away. To keep the family financially stable, Rick worked nights taking back cars and ran the shop during the day. The business struggled at first, but the Harrisons refused to give up. Over time, they built a reputation for honesty and skill. By 1986, they had outgrown their small store and moved to a bigger one. but Harrison and Rick still had bigger plans for the future. Pawn licenses in Las Vegas were hard to get because the city had strict rules about how many could be given out. But Rick paid close attention and tracked down city officials, knowing that if the city grew, more licenses would eventually become available. Eventually, his patience paid off. In 1989, after years of persistence, they finally got one of Las Vegas's highly sought-after pawn licenses. The next year, they opened Gold and Silver Pawn Shop at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard South, just 2 miles from the Strip. It was the right place at the right time. By 2015, the shop was lending around $3 million a year and making $700,000 in interest income. Business was booming. There were a lot of pawn shops in Las Vegas, so the competition was tough. Many people thought the business was shady and full of companies that took advantage of customers. The Harrisons knew they had to earn people's trust. Rick had spent years studying history and antiques. His knowledge gave the shop an edge. He could spot valuable items that others missed. Instead of focusing on gold jewelry and electronics like most pawn shops do, they became known for dealing with rare collectibles and historical artifacts. The Harrison treated customers fairly, which helped them build loyalty. By the early 2000s, the shop was famous in Las Vegas. Gamblers who lost money at casinos would often pawn valuables to get home. Collectors came in looking for rare finds, and some just wanted to see what treasures were inside. Over the years, the shop's inventory became even more unique. They bought and sold Roman coins, samurai swords, and even a New England Patriots Super Bowl ring. Fans were shocked by the fight because they had always seen the Harrison family as a united front. For years, Pawn Stars was one of the most popular reality shows on TV, and the Harrison family was at the center of it. But this lawsuit made it clear that things were far from perfect behind the scenes. This wasn't the first time the family had been involved in a lawsuit. In May 2012, a disabled Vietnam veteran named Daniel Callahan sued Richard and Rick Harrison, saying they beat him up at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in late 2011 during a fight over a rifle he brought in for appraisal. Callahan said he had brought a Model 96B rifle to the shop, hoping to get a fair deal, but things got worse quickly, according to his lawsuit. Richard and Rick allegedly choked him and dragged him out of the store, where they threw him to the sidewalk with his rifle and cane. He said his things were stolen. He was hurt and needed medical care, and he was suing for $220,000 to cover his medical bills and legal fees. The lawsuit painted a disturbing picture of what had happened that day. But Corey Harrison, also known as Big Hoss, stepped in to defend his family. He said the accusations were completely false and that neither Rick nor Richard were even in the store at the time of the incident. According to Corey Callahan, Harrison started acting aggressively while still holding the "for everyone's safety" security had to take his rifle out of the store. The case brought unwanted attention to Pawn Stars at a time when the show was more popular than ever. Fans had mixed feelings about it. Some believed Harrison and said that the lawsuit was just an attempt to get money from a successful business. Others questioned how the situation was handled and wondered if the pawn shop had the right security measures in place. Either way, the controversy hurt the show's reputation. But lawsuits were only the beginning. Pawn Stars had a lot of drama, and there were serious problems going on behind the scenes that most people never saw. The main cast seemed to get along well on screen, but there were growing disagreements over money and credit. Some cast members thought Rick Harrison was getting all the credit and most of the screen time, even though others had done just as much to make the shop successful. It wasn't just the cast who was upset, the crew and scriptwriters were also. Concerns were raised about unfair treatment, as many reality TV writers were paid much less than those who worked on scripted TV shows. For example, a survey by the Writers Guild of America East found that Pawn Stars writers were making about $2,136 per week, while writers on scripted TV shows could make up to $671 per week for similar work. Wage disputes weren't the only problem. As the show became more popular, fans started to wonder how real everything was. People watched Pawn Stars because they thought it was a real look at what goes on in a real pawn shop. But later reports came out saying that many of the deals seen on the show were staged. Buyers and sellers were often picked out ahead of time, and negotiations were sometimes planned ahead of time to make the episodes more entertaining. This kind of thing happens a lot in reality TV, but it made some viewers feel like they had been lied to for years. Pawn Stars built its reputation on the idea that it was an unscripted look at a family business. But as more of these stories came to light, the show's carefully created image started to break.